No, I can't hear anything. Can you hear me, Eric? Amber, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
But can you hear anything else? I can't.
No, I can't hear anything that would be going on.
Oh. Maybe we should just go. Leave now. Eric just sent a chat.
Jan, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Amber, can you hear us?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. So Amber and Jan, you missed the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting, which were the special meeting that we had. So now we're moving on to public input. Let's start with the people that are here in person, and then we'll move to the online people just so that it's more orderly. So if you'd like to address the committee during general public input, now is the time to do so. Please step forward, state your name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. So if there's anyone in the chamber that has general comments. Second call, if anyone in the chamber would have any general comments for the committee. Okay, then I'll ask the people online, the virtual people. Would anyone like to address the committee during public input? Second call for the virtual online people, if you would like to address the committee. Okay, last chance. Anybody in?
I'm piping in now.
And would you like to address the committee?
Yes, I would. I'm appearing here today with regard to agenda item number 6. This is with reference to the DNC Holdings LLC proposal for a PUD. This is on Marcoux Road.
Can you please state your name and address for the record?
My name is Chris Steyer, attorney, and I'm located at 200 Mason Street, Suite number 1 in Onalaska, Wisconsin.
Thank you, sir. Please continue.
Thank you. Earlier today, I emailed a letter to the city attorney and to the city planner. And in that letter, I referred to additional materials that have been sent to the Planning Commission vis-a-vis the city planner as well. And those were from Chris LeShorn, who's an architect in La Crosse, Wisconsin. And this was on behalf of Bijan Jadali and Gabriela Dumitron, my clients who reside at 220 Marcoux Road in Onalaska, Wisconsin. The subject that is on the agenda this evening is with reference to their neighboring property and a request by Roush to implement a PUD plan, which we were given notice of, I think, very late, and we've had little opportunity to be able to take a look at. But nonetheless, we did forward materials that we think set forth our opposition at this point to any determination with regard to that application for a PUD approval. And I don't know if anybody can signify whether or not they've had an opportunity to review those materials. But nonetheless, at this point, we're asking that there be a deferment of any action on that proposition so that we have additional time to be able to conduct research and study with regard to the impact that the proposed development would have on the neighboring property of my clients, as well as the community in general and the neighborhood on Marcoux Road. The issue is multifaceted, but it begins with what I think is a marked lack of notice that was provided to my clients last year, beginning with the redistricting or the rezoning of the neighboring property, and what I think is probably a classic case of spot zoning. And it folds over to today with the proposal that's put before this body to approve apparently the PUD. And I think that what I set forth in my letter, what Mr. LaShorn has in his letter should impress upon you that this would be too early to act upon on that request, that there is a environmental and a direct impact on these neighbors that would result. I know that this is 3 minutes, so I don't have a lot of time, but I'm asking that you take a look at our letter and that you defer this decision to a later date so that we have an opportunity to put additional data in front of this committee so that we can make more reasoned decisions in this regard.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to address the committee in advance of the public hearing?
Good evening. Can you hear me okay? So my name is Nick Roush, and I'm here representing DNC Holdings and our property that we purchased at Lot 1, Marcoux Road.
Can you get a little closer to the microphone? I think it'll project.
Is that better? I'm doing the splits to be at the microphone.
Maybe lift it.
Yeah, I don't know if it goes up much higher. That's kind of it. Oh, there you go. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, and I'll speak with a loud voice. Thank you. So my name is Nick Roush. I'm here representing DNC Holdings with regard to the property at Lot 1 on Marcoux Road. And I guess a few things just to address and maybe assuage some of the concern here. First, to note that so far as we know, all legal notice that was sent out with regard to the property was following all of the normal state and local municipal guidelines with regard to public notices. It's required both for the rezoning, which occurred before we owned the property, for the record, about 6 months before we purchased it, and also with regard to our PUD request. So all of those notices have gone out on time so far as I know, and I'm sure that staff can speak to that when that time comes. Additionally, what I would add is that the project that we're proposing is in alignment with the surrounding properties in the neighborhood. Our plan there is to build a few single-family homes, much like the neighbors it's surrounded with. And to the south, there's actually a condo development to the south of our property that immediately abuts us. So what we're proposing is in alignment with that. The square footage of those homes will be somewhere around 3,000 square feet or so. We're still finalizing the final details because one of the homes is for my parents. So it's not a rental project. It's nothing of that sort. The project is all about some single family homes for my parents and a couple of their friends. So that's our intent with regard to that project. I think other concerns will come up, and I've reviewed Mr. LaShorn's letter as well as Mr. Dyer's letter, and I appreciate the concerns of our neighbors there. But I think we have great experience dealing with challenging sites with our development experience in the past, and should be able to be good stewards of that property and fulfilling this development and our vision for this development without any problems. Obviously, construction challenges come up, and we've met those challenges many times and risen to that occasion. So I think we've got that under our control with our plan for that property. I would imagine there'll be more discussion that will come up when our item comes up, and we can cover the additional things, but that's just sort of a brief overview of our plan for that property and what's there.
Thank you, sir.
Mhm.
Would anyone else like to address the Plan Commission this evening?
Yes. Hello, my name is Steve Krognes, and I am the Country Club Homeowners Association president, with which Mr. Roush mentions. I stand here in opposition to what he has done. And the thing that I find interesting is when this was zoned or rezoned, it was done by the city, and I have no objection to that. But what I object to is the rules have changed. If we now want to petition the city to zone that, to have it rezoned back to R1, the owner, Mr. Roush, must sign off on that. The initial letter, which went to the owner, it was stated, hey, all we need to do is notify you, which is fine. But it's the rules change that I'm concerned about. Because if we go forward, I just want to go on record for you to know that I'm disappointed in that rules change because it goes against precedent or past history. Also, with response tagging on to the attorney, would you please answer the question as to whether or not you have received his packet and have you been able to review it? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sure. 208 Martu Road, Onalaska.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the commission? Is there anyone else who would like to address the commission? Amanda, do you see anyone online with their hand raised? Okay, this is the third and final call. If anyone would like to address the commission, please do so now, whether you're in the room or online. Okay, I'm not seeing or hearing anyone, so the public input is now closed, and we will move on to consideration and possible action on the following items. The first item, item 4 on your agenda, is a public hearing, which is taking place at approximately 7 p.m. or immediately following public input, to consider a rezoning request filed by Dale Jacobson of Space Matters LLC, West 4917 Battlestone Station Road, La Crosse, Wisconsin 54601, from B2 Community Business District to I1 Light Industrial District, to allow adjacent parcels to merge for future commercial development, previously a portion of 810 2nd Avenue South, Onalaska, Wisconsin 54650, and this previously was a portion of tax parcel ID number 18-956-1. We'll ask city staff, planner Katie Aspenson, if she would like to address the commission in advance of the public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to give a brief background on this project for you prior to the public hearing. The applicant intends to construct 2 to 3 structures as well as other site improvements on tax parcel 18-951-7, and then utilize a portion of a property that he just obtained, which is currently zoned community business, B2,
Thank you, Katie. We'll now open up the public hearing, and I would like to ask for anyone wishing to speak in favor of this rezoning request. Second call, if anyone would like to speak in favor of the zoning request that's been filed by Dale Jacobson. Third and final call, if anyone would like to speak in favor. Not seeing or hearing anyone. So that portion of the public hearing is closed, and I will now ask if anyone would like to speak against the rezoning request filed by Dale Jacobson for the property on 2nd Avenue South. Would anyone like to speak against? Third and final call, if anyone would like to speak against the rezoning request. I'm not seeing or hearing anyone, so I will now declare the public hearing closed and turn this matter over to the Plan Commission.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the motion for a rezoning request filed by Dale Jacobson of Space Matters LLC, W4917 Battlestone Station Road, La Crosse, Wisconsin, 54650, to rezone land from B2 Community Business District to I1 Light Industrial District to allow adjacent parcels to merge for future development previously as a portion of 810 2nd Avenue South on Alaska, with the 9 conditions in Agenda 4.
I will second that.
Thank you, sir. I have a motion on the floor by Tom Smith, seconded by Craig Breitsprecher to approve the rezoning request. Is there any discussion? Skip?
I'm a little confused on this. Is this at 810 2nd Avenue South or 810 2nd Avenue Southwest?
Katie?
Southwest. That was the typo. It's meant to be 2nd Avenue Southwest.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification.
Good catch, Skip.
Is there any other discussion? Katie?
Thank you. I spoke with the applicant today, and they had a request to modify condition number 2 if the Plan Commission is willing. Currently, it states prior to any construction activities, property owner to obtain and file a certified survey map with La Crosse County Register of Deeds. They'd like to amend that to state file a certified survey map with La Crosse County Register of Deeds, or a meets and boundaries survey and file with La Crosse County Surveyor Office. Both of those options will achieve what we're looking for this evening. So that was a request of the developer.
Thank you.
Katie, do I assume that the city supports that amendment change? Either one would work.
Yep, it does meet our zoning requirements.
Okay, so we will need an amendment if the commissioners would like to change that as requested by the applicant.
I'll make a motion to accept the amendment as read into the record by staff for item number 2 under the conditions.
Thank you, Craig.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Craig, seconded by Tom Aldersmith to amend the second condition as described. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Okay, we'll go ahead and vote on the amendment. Those in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. The amendment passes. Now we'll go back to the original motion as amended. Is there any other discussion on that?
Mayor Smith,
Yes, ma'am.
this is Jan Brock. I'm wondering, Katie, do we know what's going in there, or are we simply, I mean, I don't like speculative zoning.
Katie?
Yes, thank you, Jan. So
Thank you.
Can you hear me, Jan?
I can.
Okay, so the purpose of this section is the owner has obtained additional land around the corner from Dairyland, or from Dairy Queen. They owned all the way down and around the corner, and city staff have worked with this developer. So the purpose of this no business is going to be going on this portion of the parcel. It would be a retaining wall to improve visibility at that corner, potentially a sign to serve the overall development. And then also they would have potentially some parking to serve the development due to site constraints. They are not required to inform us exactly of what it is that they're going to do. With that land, that development is already proceeding, provided they follow all of the potential uses listed in the principal uses section of our UDC. They have to talk to staff before they occupy any building to ensure that we have appropriate parking necessary for all of those uses. So we do not know today, but we will know before they begin any occupancy.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Katie. Are there any other questions or comments or discussion from the plan commissioners? Okay, the motion before us then is to approve the rezoning request with the 9 conditions as amended. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Item 5 is a public hearing at approximately 7:10 or immediately following the previous public hearing to consider a rezoning request filed by JET Building and Remodeling LLC, 14534 State Road 26, Brownsville, Minnesota, 55919, on behalf of Andy Begeman of Andy's Auto Service, 641 2nd Avenue South on Alaska, Wisconsin, 54650, to rezone land from R2 Low Medium Density Residential District to B1 Neighborhood Business District to allow adjacent parcels to merge and the construction of an accessory structure on a property without an address in Onalaska, Wisconsin, 54650. This is tax parcel ID number 18-1190-3. City Planner Katie Aspenson, do you have any comments in advance of the public hearing?
Thank you, ma'am. The applicant is looking to construct an accessory structure on tax parcel 18-1190-3. The Plan Commission recently rezoned the small parcel of land. They have now obtained a small parcel of land just north of that was previously owned by the city. It was old abandoned railroad right-of-way. They would like to put the ponding for their new accessory structure on that property, and they'll be required to merge all 3 of those together. And before they can merge them together, all 3 parcels need to be zoned the same. Attached in the site packet is a conceptual site plan. The property owner will be obtained to acquire this permit and comply with the UDC and obtain all required permits prior to construction activities. City staff have put together 7 conditions of approval for this development. As a public hearing will be held, testimony should be considered before deciding on the requested rezoning application. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Katie. I'll now open the public hearing. If you would like to address the committee, please state your name and address. I'll ask now for people wishing to speak in favor of this rezoning request. Second call, if anyone would like to speak in favor. Third and final call. Do you have anyone over there? If anyone would like to speak in favor of this rezoning request. That portion of the public hearing is now closed, and I would like to ask if anyone would like to speak against the rezoning request for the property that's located on 2nd Avenue South. Second call, if anyone would like to speak against. Third and final call for people wishing to speak against this rezoning request. Not seeing or hearing any, I will close the public hearing and turn this matter with its 7 conditions over to the Plan Commission.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the zoning request filed by Jet Building and Remodeling LLC at 14534 State 26, Brownsville, Minnesota, on behalf of Andy Bagman of Andy's Auto Service, 641 2nd Avenue South on Alaska, to rezone land from R2 Low Medium Density Residential District to B1 Neighborhood Business District, to allow adjacent parcels to merge in the construction of an accessory structure on the property without an address in Unalaska 54650, tax parcel 18-1190-9 with the 7 conditions noted in Agenda 5.
Thank you, Alder Smith.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Newt Temte. Is there discussion? Craig?
Katie, the proposed accessory structure here is within the guidelines that the Plan Commission reestablished after they were changed by the council some time ago, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Katie,
Jan, go ahead.
Mayor Smith, this question is actually for Jared. There's a retention pond and then it mentions infiltration. Just wondering if this pond would hold water, like standing water? If so, is a fence necessary, or is it actually an infiltration system like a rain garden?
I would characterize this area as more of a rain garden type infiltration area, where with the soils that are considered down in that area that the rainwater would infiltrate, that would be the goal of the area. We're just trying to keep the runoff so it doesn't go on the neighbor's property.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Jared.
Thank you for your question, Jan. Any other questions or comments from the commissioners? Not seeing or hearing any. So the question, the motion on the floor is to approve the rezoning request from R2 to B1 for the parcel located on 2nd Avenue. There are 7 conditions. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 6 is a public hearing at approximately 7:20 or immediately following the previous to consider a general development plan to create a planned unit development PUD application filed by Nicholas Rausch of DNC Holdings LLC, 707 Lacrosse Street, Office 102, Lacrosse, Wisconsin, 54601, to allow for a new residential development to contain 4 single-family dwellings on a single parcel located at Marcoux Road on Alaska, Wisconsin, 54650. This is tax parcel ID number 18-3619-1. Katie, do you have anything in advance of the public hearing?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This planned unit development request is intended to define special site setbacks, architectural specifications, and screening for the development of the parcel in question. The developer intends to construct up to 4 owner-occupied single-family homes to be subdivided via a condominium plat. The shape of the parcel, as well as existing vegetation and topography, inhibit close adherence to the UDC in terms of setbacks, architectural features, and vegetation requirements. Included in the packet is a variety of information provided by the developer, including a cover letter describing their project and maps of the site showing utilities, grading and drainage, landscaping, and a site plan in addition to architectural plans. I'm going to quickly run through what the requests are to deviate from the Unified Development Code. In particular, they are not, the items not addressed in my presentation this evening are not being requested to be deviated from. In particular, yard setbacks, the applicant is requesting that the UDC code section 13.02.25-1, requiring a minimum of a 25-foot setback to a 40-foot setback in the R3 district be waived. Due to the parcel shape and limitations of the driveway, they're also looking that the homes in front may be slightly closer than 25 feet by approximately 3 feet closer to the street, and the homes in the rear are proposed at approximately 192 feet from Marcoux Road, as there's a driveway that goes in between the 4 homes that would serve all 4 structures. The applicant is also requesting that UDC code section 13.02.25B, requiring that driveway rules setbacks be waived. They're proposing that it needs to be closer than 10 feet to the property line in order to accommodate home development. City staff are in support of these requests due to the reasons stipulated above. We would recommend a minimum of a 3-foot setback for driveways from an abutting parcel, as that's consistent with our R1 and R2 single family and duplex dwelling driveway setbacks. In terms of architecture, the applicant is requesting that UDC section 13.02.51B3, requiring a minimum of 12% transparency for the side facade be waived. The applicant is wishing to maintain privacy between the homeowners, but they are attempting to meet the requirement if possible within the constraints. As the applicant mentioned, they're still designing the homes, so that is something that they'll be working with as approved by the Plan Commission and Common Council. They did provide a standard architectural design for consideration by the Plan Commission, which is in your packet tonight, and all proposed residences will have similar architectural features. City staff are in support of this request, as typically this requirement applies more so in row housing.
This is Alderman Steve Knott. Everything's going quiet on my end.
Could the online people please check their mute? We're getting some feedback in the council chambers. Sorry, Katie.
Not a problem. Feedback from the northeastern adjacent property, and there's also 30% slopes that are in existence that are not allowed to be touched by the developer in order to preserve environmental features. Included in the packet is the detailed conceptual plan. As the public hearing will be held, testimony from the public should be considered prior to deciding on the requested general development plan. City staff have put together 17 conditions of approval for this development. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. I'll now open the public hearing and ask for people that would like to speak in favor of this planned unit development. Please state your name and address again and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Okay. My name is Nick Roush, and I'm here representing DNC Holdings LLC. Thank you, everybody, for listening to me tonight. Let me first say that I completely understand Mr. Jadali's concern. It's always challenging when change happens, especially on a neighboring parcel. Having a lot of development experience myself, I know that people get very used to large undeveloped parcels next to their own being that way for many, many years. And when that time for change comes, it's hard. And I completely understand that. That said, as I said before, our intent is sort of was, I don't know, hinted to in some of these letters was about building rentals, and we are not building rentals. We're building for single family homes. So just to be clear on that. There was also a lot of concern about code considerations and adhering to code compliance and all those sorts of things. And I think, you know, I'm sort of restating the obvious, but I do know that Head of Planning Katie Aspenson and Engineering Jared Holter are both eminently qualified to review those code compliance.
I think we've lost audio again.
challenging sites, large slopes, stormwater retention, snow retention, all of these things, because we have lots of experience and a great staff of the people that we work with in those site plan designs to be able to accommodate for those needs. As I mentioned earlier, the zoning of the property to R3 occurred well before we purchased the property. So, we bought the property with the best of intentions because of the existing zoning. With regard to architectural requirements, we met with the Architectural Approval Committee that holds covenant over that entire development that surrounds the La Crosse Country Club to gain their conceptual approval of the site and what we wanted to do before the purchase of the property. So we reviewed that with their Architectural Approval Committee, which is why some of this is a little bit of a surprise to me, and that we communicated with those folks. Bless you. And so the last piece I have, because obviously it's difficult to read minds and know what folks are going to say, I would really appreciate an opportunity to speak after arguments against, so that I might have a chance to address any of those concerns for the sake of the commission and everybody involved. So with that, thank you so much. And I hope that you vote in favor of tonight.
Thank you, sir. We're having a technical difficulty, so we'll just pause for a few minutes until we get that resolved. We're not having a technical, okay. Okay, so would anybody else like to speak in favor of the PUD? Second call for those wishing to speak in favor. Amanda, do you see anyone online who would like to speak in favor? Okay, I'm not hearing anyone who would like to speak. So will now close that portion of the public hearing, and now we are asking for people who would like to speak against the planned unit development filed by Nick Roche for the property on Marcoux Road. Please state your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I'm Pam Krognes, living at 208 Marcoux Road. I'm the treasurer of the Country Club Condos Homeowners Association. I'm here to address the Plan Commission concerning the application for the development by Nicholas Roush. This parcel of land was originally listed as single residential environmental sensitive land, and unbeknownst to us, changed to R3 multiple residences, with the developer asking for multiple variances to fit 4 single homes on this land. I find it incredibly curious that the rezoning of Marcoux Road Lot 1 was approved without any of us who live within 250 feet getting any notice from the city. Nicholas Roush has not been a responsible or conscientious owner of the lot since owning it. He does not keep the grass on the hill cut to the required height, and he does not keep the sidewalks clear of snow in the winter. Neighbors have fallen, had to walk in the street, and have had to call the city road department several times this winter and last to get his sidewalks cleared. I have personally called at least 3 times this winter, and I personally know another resident who has called. The person at the roads department also told me I wasn't the only one who has called. This is an ongoing issue. In February, we got over 5 inches of snow on February 4th, February 11th, another ½ inch, February 13th, a ½ inch, and then 4 more inches on February 21st of a total of 10 inches, which were not plowed. If you recall, the temperature was very cold. By not plowing the snow on the sidewalk, it got very deep, then frozen, and turned into a complete dangerous mess. The roads department generously gave him 4 days to get it cleaned up. I don't know why he was given 4 days when the rest of us have 24 hours. Towards the end of the 4th day, it was plowed, but you should have seen it. It was not done very well. I don't know if he took a truck up there or what on the sidewalk, but the grass was torn up and there were big scrapes in the concrete sidewalk. I wish I could say this is an isolated event, but it isn't. I shudder to think how he will take care of the driveway and maintain his properties when he can't even keep the sidewalk clear. There is no one in the neighborhood where you will ever see this issue. The driveway he's planning has a northern exposure, meaning the ice will not melt easily, and with the proposed degree of the grade to the drive, cars will not be able to stop and will slide onto Marcoux Road. This developer is asking for multiple variances that absolutely should not be approved. I am asking you not to approve his proposal. be suspect of his wording in the proposal, and I quote, will attempt to meet the requirements if possible. He says his proposal will, and I quote, benefit the neighborhood in the city of Onalaska. Contrary to his claim that he will benefit the neighborhood, I maintain that he has been a poor steward of what he calls, in quotes, this beautiful existing topography and vegetation. In fact, I contend he has proven himself to be an irresponsible and arrogant landowner who consistently thumbs his nose at current basic city ordinances like shoveling, but then he comes with his hat in his hand tonight asking for variances to a parcel. If the land could support 4 houses, he wouldn't need to ask for variances. It is apparent using any common sense that this property, because of its unique shape, should always have maintained the R1 zoning. How he will maintain 4 residences and a long driveway when he doesn't follow guidelines to clear city sidewalks is my question. Please say no to this proposal, and I thank you for your time, and I appreciate your thoughtful consideration.
Welcome.
Thank you. I've never been to one of these. It's rather fascinating. But I'll tell you what's going on tonight. Kind of reminds me, though, of trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. If somebody needs so many variances to get a project done,
Sir, please
if somebody needs to have so many variances to have a
state
project.
your name and
I'm very sorry.
address.
My name is Mike Baroni,
Thank you.
and I'm president of the board of directors of the La Crosse Country Club
Thank you.
at 300 Marco Road. And one of the things that I would certainly like to ask Mr. Roush is who he spoke to at the country club. Because I've been on the board for the last 6 years. I've been president for the last 4, and we do not have anything like an architectural committee. So there's no way in hell he spoke to an architectural committee at the La Crosse Country Club. We oppose this strongly for 2 reasons. He addressed the driveway. That's our first reason. We think it's extremely unsafe. There's a curve there. There's a lot of traffic coming in and out. The club has 2 driveways that come out onto Marco Road right there. We have a lot of traffic from just normal members coming and going, but we host a tremendous number of outside events. We could have 200, 300, even 400 people there at a given time at an event, and all of them will be coming out those 2 driveways. So to add another driveway into that mix with the other cars coming back and forth in that, to me, it's dangerous. And, you know, I don't know this for certain, but I know when the condos were developed on Marco Road, they had proposed a driveway onto that part of the street and they weren't allowed. They had to put it all up, you know, on the other side. And I think that was very smart. So we think it poses a very, very dangerous situation to put another driveway there. There's 4 houses. I heard there's 3-car garages. That could be 12 cars trying to come in and out down a slope, blind, regardless of what he said. It is hard to see around that corner. And then with maybe hundreds of cars coming out of our facility. It's very dangerous. Second, Cross Country Club paid about $125,000. Sorry, I can't talk with the mask. About $125 in real estate taxes last year. Take the 4 houses that he intends to put up there, and maybe they'll be assessed at $4,000 a year in taxes. It's $20,000. Doesn't take much of a reduction in the value of our property and all the properties in the valley to make up for that. I think it's very short-sighted to think you're going to gain, you know, anything. And the reason the Emerald Valley has such high property values is because it is absolutely gorgeous. The scenery, the bluffs, the hills, the houses, the landscaping around the houses, the fact that the houses are set off apart from each other, you know, makes it the highest real estate in the entire county. And it's a huge part of your tax base. So sticking 4 houses, cramming them in right in the front as you enter the valley, as you make that turn, that's most people, that valley opens up and that's the view of it. Instead, they're going to be coming in now and they're going to see these 4 houses crammed on the side of a hill while they're dodging traffic trying to get in and out. So it would take a minute drop in real estate values in that area to seriously put the county, the city, and the residents in the hole. So I really believe, and the country club believes, that if this goes through, there's 4 losers, 1 winner. 4 losers are the country club, the residents of the valley, and the city of La Crosse and La Crosse County. and the winner is Mr. Roush. So we oppose it very strongly. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, would anyone else like to speak against? Start out by stating your name and address, and then you have 3 minutes. Welcome.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Tom Krajewski. I live at 214 Marcoux Road. First, I want to begin by thanking each of you for your public service. I worked in governmental affairs for a number of years, and I know how important that is, so thank you. I wasn't born here, but my family moved to Onalaska when I was 3 years old. I was growing up on what was not Schnick Drive, wasn't Schnick Drive, there was no Schnick Drive when I grew up there. I never thought that I would be standing before this body tonight, but here I am. So we have lived at 214 Marcoux Road for about 5 years. The property where the developer proposes to build is less than 150 feet from our condo. We enjoy the nature that abounds in the area. We're concerned that this may well disrupt the balance of that nature. As I was leaving home tonight to come here, 4 deer on the hillside. Will they be there when this project is done? Let me begin on a positive note. I like the number of rain gardens that proposed for the site, but a half dozen rain gardens will not cure the problems with this site. We always expected a family would build a home on that property. We never expected that 4 homes would go on that site. The site has so many constraints. Normally you would think 2.5 acres, that's plenty of room for 4 houses. Not this site. The developer proposes to shoehorn 4 houses into a site that perhaps could support 1 or perhaps two homes. And we're not talking just 4 homes, we're talking big homes. 2 houses proposed appear to have 4 bedrooms, a rec room and an office, and 3-car garages. There are 2 more buildings indicated on the plan, but those buildings are so small compared to the other ones. Are they going to grow? And if they grow, are they going to fit on that lot? The developer is asking for a number of exemptions. So many you have to wonder about the quality of the entire project. Excuse me, but as a result of these exceptions, the project has an air about it. I hope we have zoning rules for a reason. The rules should not be tossed aside when the developer comes along. Earlier, I spoke about the constraints of the site. Allow me to quote from the staff report on this proposal. Quote, "The shape of the parcel, as well as existing vegetation and topography, inhibit close adherence to the Unified Development Code setback, architectural and vegetation requirements," end quote. I do not want close adherence to the code. I want adherence to the code. As I understand the code, you can do anything you want as long as it is within the code. Is the code wrong? Perhaps we should change the code rather than violating it. Think about this. Why has this property not been developed in the last 20 to 30 years? Is it because it's not suited for development? Is it because it's environmentally sensitive? It certainly is. If you've not had the opportunity to visit the site, I would urge you to do that before moving forward with this project and ultimately oppose the project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to speak against the planned unit development? Start by saying your name and address.
Kazi Rehan, I'm at 504 Pine Valley Road. I'll basically state make similar statements as few other people have made here. Basically, allowing 4 homes in that small piece of land, awkwardly shaped land is actually sort of dangerous. I myself had a traffic accident in that curve about 2 years ago. And during the winter months, it's a very dangerous curve. If you guys haven't been there, you should go there and see for yourself that it is a dangerous curve, number one. And again, to reemphasize, if the builder wanted to build 1 or 2 homes, even that would create problems in terms of safety, but 4 is just gonna be dangerous. Now, again, I'm not an engineer or architect or anything, but it's just probably common sense. So, and then other thing is that valley is very beautiful, and having 4 single dwellings, that's just not, is not consistent with all the other homes in the neighborhood. That probably will actually affect the property price eventually. Now, when we went and bought land and built homes there, we built according to the existing rules and regulations, allowing the builder to change rules, allowing exemptions is just probably not in the best interest of the neighborhood. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to speak against? Welcome.
My name is Tuna Sondag. I live at 204 Marco. I'm one of the members, or I'm one of the owners of one of the condominiums that are there. I'm the unofficial person that takes care of a lot of that property when we have damage to it. As I walk past that property, I think of all the problems I'm having with dealing with the parts of the property on our condominium that have these sloping hills and having trouble with, number 1, getting it mowed, number 2, maintaining the grass on it, and number 3 is when you take a lot of the trees away, we have to start putting more trees in. There's a lot of trees and scrub on that hold that soil there. But when you start putting multiple units in there, you break up the makeup of that soil texture, and underneath it is more stone. As far as I can tell from what I deal with. I know that we've had to have some special ways that the water has to be handled at our condominium, and we've had trouble, and I've had to deal with it. And the fact that when the water comes down off the hill, we have a system that goes underneath the ground and comes out at more street level in order to handle that water, as opposed to the water running down over the side of the hill and washing it away. We've had a trouble one time with moles, and it ruined the grass, and we had about half of that hill slough off, and it took me 6 months to regain the soil. That meant that you had to be there every day in water and take care of it. I'm not sure if the individual that's going to develop this is going to have the same care that I have, because I own part of it, so consequently I'm there taking care of it. But I'm concerned when I look at how, when I try to walk there, because I do walk there twice a week, the care that was given to that property, at least with the ice that I had to contend to and the water, because it wasn't maintained, was something that said to me, I'm not sure that the individual that's going to take care of this in a piece of property that is much more hilly than the parts that I have to deal with, is really going to be able to put 4 structures in there and be able to maintain the topography without it ruining it. So that's my concern about this, based upon my having to take care of the property that we have at the present time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello again.
Welcome.
You can't see me, smile, but I am. And I am thrilled to be here. I've never done one of these things, and that shows how important I believe this is. My name, again, for the record, is Stephen Krognes. I happen to be the president of the Homeowners Association, of which Dr. Tunis Zondag just spoke, Pamela Krognes just spoke, and Tom Krajewski just spoke. To Steve Knott, I apologize. I did send you the information on an email, but I got a bounce back saying that I needed to contact the administrator. So apparently my email did not reach you to the via your firewall. I'd like to start out by saying, number one, I take exception to what Mr. Roush said about homeowners. I don't have to be right. I just have to make the developer look bad. I think that is poor play. And again, Mr. Roush is asking to change the rules. He wants to rebut this. When are his concerns going to follow the rules? I find that really, really interesting. And if that is approved and allowed, I represent a contingency here, and I would like the contingency to rebut his comments. So we can keep this and maintain a debate, or we can stick to the rules that govern the protocol that has been established. Now, getting to my true notes, I want to thank you again. And as you know, I'm here in opposition to the PUD. And one of my concerns has been brought up, but it's the various elevations that are on this property. You know, it's all about real estate is location, location, location. But in this case, it's density, density, density. And there's too much density on this plot. I asked the question, and it's not a rhetorical question, with this 2.5, actually it's 2.1 acres, how much of that property is actually buildable? Now, the attorney that spoke has submitted a packet which has an architectural who is an expert who would not make the I don't have to be right, I just have to make him look bad scenario. I think there's a lot of expertise that is here tonight and has had some communication. Aside from that, I am very concerned about the ecosystem and the impact of what he wants to do. If we boil this down to a nutshell, the tipping point here is where he can put a driveway. And there is a lot of opposition to where that driveway goes. He has been, if history, he talks about the history of him being a good developer. I contend that he is a poor landowner. It's been mentioned that he only clears the snow when the pressure becomes so intense that he has to. And then he does it in a cavalier way. Again, he does not pay attention to the rules that the rest of the community do play. I don't understand this. Also, he keeps that grass very, 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 very tall. He doesn't afford the same compliance that everybody else does. But getting back to this driveway, and the snow removal on the sidewalk, I would like to tell you, as a resident, I see how many people use this sidewalk. What I see are the elderly. What I see are families with young children. What I see are people who are walking their dogs responsibly. And I see the middle-aged. But when you take a look at what he's done by not removing the snow, I have tripped, I have sprained my ankle, and I have almost fallen. His use of his property is inappropriate. He talks about intention. Well, you and I know, you stick a shovel in the ground, Katie bar the door, intention out the window. I can have the best intentions, but I believe based on his history, he's going to take the path of least resistance. That'll throw all of his intentions out the window. I realize that the notice was sent by Katie and it was postmarked, I believe, the 10th. I received it last week. Now, I know you are not responsible for the mail, but why should I be penalized by the U.S. mail? So what I'm asking for is for you to vote this down, but at the very least, table this decision. There is a lot of things that are, this is an onion. Let's unpeel it together. And again, I ask if you grant Mr. Roush the idea that he can change the rules of this meeting, that you allow me to change the rules and rebut what he says. Because remember, I don't have to be right. I just have to make him look wrong. And I say that facetiously. We are right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I feel a need to. I lived in the condominiums.
Please start with your name.
Oh, I forgot.
Address, and you do need to wear your mask here.
Oh, I didn't think I was close enough to anybody, and I've been vaccinated twice. Okay.
I have,
Barbara Loomis, Loomis, 404 Country Club Lane.
thank you.
I stood before this committee when the country club condos were going to go up. I was 100% for it because the developer had always had beautiful properties and took good care of his properties. And I felt that it would be an asset when people came in to Emerald Valley, that they see something that would be beautiful and increase the value. 5 years ago, I contacted a developer and I said, I'm looking at this property, the property we're speaking about tonight. I thought, wow, I live in the condos. Condo life wasn't for me. I needed a big house. I wanted to have parties. I wanted to entertain. So I looked at this piece of property, the parcel we're talking about tonight, and I contacted a developer who has developed all through Alaska. You know his name, Dave Evenson. He's built more houses, probably thousands right now in the numbers. So I had him come over and look at the property. I go, what do you think? Now this man, he gave me an honest opinion. He said, I wouldn't develop that for you to begin with. He said, you have to look at everything about this piece of property. It's not a good piece of property to put a home on. Why do you want this? I go, I don't know. What do I know? I'm not a developer. I don't know anything about, developing the land to put a proper home on it, let alone for it. So I took his advice. He knows what's going on. He's a developer. He knew what was involved in putting a home up on that hill. And if you haven't seen it, you better go look at it. So I don't begrudge the man for wanting to put up a home or 4 homes. What I'm concerned about is, I do walk my dog there because I live in the valley. And when I walk a dog, and I have to have a dog walk in 3 feet of weeds because it hasn't been properly taken care of, and then I walk by those condos, and the condo grass is nice and cut. I ask myself, who owns this property? Because I knew the woman that did it was Pam Barge. She always took care of it. Why is this person not taking care of this property? The for sale sign was gone. So I get upset thinking, I have to take care of my property. I'm paying a tremendous amount in taxes, but yet we don't take care of this property. What's going on? And the same thing I'm gonna repeat that Pam said about the snow removal. Yeah, I called City Hall because I get a letter from City Hall if I don't mow, or not mow, but if I don't shovel my sidewalk within 24 hours. And I'm sloshing through all this ice and snow, and I'm thinking, whoever this person is, they need to be notified. They need to get letters. City of La Crosse, I think you get 24 hours and they'll come and clean it off for you and give you a bill. So good, bad, or otherwise, the gentleman does not take care of his property like I think a person should. If you're gonna own it, you gotta pay to have it taken care of. I'm concerned that a house would go in there. I think the driveway is a very hazard, and that's what Evenson told me about building a house there. The driveway is a hazard for anybody coming and going, people walking. So I just had to voice my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else would like to speak against?
Katie, this is Jan Brock. We're not hearing anything.
Okay, let's pause a minute and check that. We can hear you, Jan. Can you hear me?
I'm able to hear.
Is that Amber?
Yes, this is Amber.
So it's just Jan that lost audio?
Yes.
Amber can hear, but Jan can't.
Yeah, she might just hang up and try again.
Dan Stevens, can you hear us? Carrie Burmaster, can you hear us?
This is Steve Knott. I'm hearing. There were times when it was going out. What I've had to do is mute and unmute my phone several times, and it seems to pick it up. I've done that several times now.
And this is Carrie, and you're just kind of cutting in and out, and it's hard to tell if anybody's talking or not because we don't know if it's just a break or what, but it's been pretty faint.
Is it better like when the commissioners are speaking? Because sometimes I notice the people at the microphone, it's a little softer in the room.
I can probably actually hear the speakers better than I can hear the commission members.
Okay, so it's not that then. I thought maybe it might be that microphone.
It seems to start up again when you switch speakers on the commission members.
Kim, I've had, I actually heard the last several speakers, but whenever Katie would give the intro, it would cut out. So I kind of wonder if different people are losing sound at different times.
Okay, they're making some adjustments right now, so maybe they'll. Where is Nils? Nils is our head IT guy. Okay, so Jan, can you hear us yet?
Yes, Mayor, I just reconnected and I can. Thank you.
Okay, and we can hear you as well. Jan, it sounds like it's kind of a mixed bag. Others online said that it's cut out, but they did all respond when we asked for them. So We'll continue then. We're still asking for people who would like to speak against the planned unit development at Marcoux Road. So is there anyone else in the room or virtually who would like to speak against?
This is Chris Steyer again.
Please state your address, Chris, and then you can go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
My business address is 200 Mason Street, Suite 1 in Onalaska. And I wanted to note for the record that I was unable to hear several minutes of Mr. Roush's statement. And there was other portions of the proceedings this evening that I was unable to hear as it was cutting out. But one of the things that I did hear Mr. Roush say was that perhaps my clients, Mr. Jadali and Ms. Dumatron, perhaps don't like change. And that they're opposed to this because they prefer to have a vacant lot next to them. That is completely untrue and somewhat ironic because back in 2018, Mr. Jadali did approach the city planner about the possibility of erecting 2 homes on the property adjacent to his home in order to house his 2 sisters. And he was assured that this was not going to happen because it was in fact zoned R1 and that essentially was dissuaded from any further discussion about going forward with anything like that. And further, in talking with Mr. Jadali, I know that he would in fact welcome Mr. Roush if this were a situation where he were trying to make his family home next door. But it's not that, and it's quite different from that. I agree with the statements of some of the others that this is sort of tantamount to putting a square peg into a round hole and trying to force this thing into an incompatible location. The property, as I understand it, was for sale for quite a long time. And the imposition to selling it when it was zoned as R1 was the cost that would go into the driveway. And if you have an occasion to look at the property, you'll understand why. It's very highly elevated. As mentioned, there are some very steep areas of the property that make it very difficult to develop. Now, Mr. Roush's, I guess his to this board is that you know my work, trust me. We've heard from others who don't share the sentiment, who had some experience with, I guess, the history and the way that he has cared for the property to date since his ownership. Some very passionate statements, and I think that it, if nothing else is impressed upon you, that this is not a popular plan that is being proposed here. I agree that I think that this is a weird lot. It's a triangular shaped lot. It's a strange mechanism for this body to call it a PUD, which, I mean, to my knowledge, is just a different undertaking altogether than what we're talking about here, with less than 2.5 acres of property and 4 single-family homes. But the fact is that Mr. Jadali and his wife are not opposed to change. They are opposed to the type of change that is being proposed here by Mr. Roush. This is his LLC. This isn't Mr. Roush's family home, from what we can tell. And it is not, from what I can also tell from our architect, Chris LeShorn's documentation, a at all typical situation. And obviously that's the case since he is, before this body, is basically asking for several variances to make this happen. So the problem that I see right now, there was one architectural rendition of what one of the properties would look like, and I think that was designated as the Roush family home. There are one-dimensional maps and things of that nature that have been provided to this body to inspect, to try to make a decision going forward. But we don't really have any ability to visually conceptualize how this is going to look from ground level. There isn't anything that's been put in place that will designate the footprint of this development that would allow, for example, Mr. LaShorn to put this into some sort of rendering that we might have a better appreciation for what it's going to look like. But from what I can tell, and this is with very little time to respond, this is something that is not in concert with the neighborhood, something that is not in concert environmentally, and is something that is unwelcomed. And I think that's pretty obvious at this point. It's not a good fit. So we'd like to just sort of take Mr. Roush at his word. Trust me, you know my work. We don't. And those that do don't have as much confidence. And I guess at this point, what I would suggest is, and request, would be that this be deferred, that we have additional opportunity to investigate this, to provide this body with additional data to make a reasoned and careful response to this request, which does, to me, seem out of place and incompatible, generally speaking. That's all I have.
Sir? Is there anyone else who would like to speak against? Is there anyone online who would like to?
Yeah, my name's Chris LaShorn. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
My name's Chris LaShorn. I am at 425 South 28th Street, La Crosse. I'm an architect working with Mr. Jadali, reviewing his concerns. And I put a list together that I submitted along with Mr. Jadali and his lawyer. I think out of the 13 concerns that we had, I wanted to highlight 3 of them, excuse me. The first one would be the stormwater concerns from this property. I understand that there's rain gardens and there's probably stormwater collection, but understanding the amount of roof that's going to be added as opposed to a single family house where you would have one roof, maybe 2,500 square feet, and then a driveway and running up to potentially 3 or 4 car garage. It doesn't really matter. But in this case, there's 4 separate dwellings, driveways that have to connect all of them to a driveway that runs down to the street. This adds a considerable amount of hard surfaces to this property that right now is obviously unoccupied and has grass and trees already on it. And so that retains the water, and it probably has less impact on what ends up in Markle Road or the stormwater collection there. But with this, I could see very easily, without doing calculations, I think I'd probably defer to a landscape architect to help me with determining the actual amount of water in a 100-year rainstorm is what we determine most stormwater problems with. It would be easy for me to visualize the stormwater system being overwhelmed at this spot, and it's either erode on the property or will overwhelm the street. I'll move along to The next concern would be the driveway as it goes up to these 4 new dwellings, runs along the north property line adjacent to Mr. Jadali. Along that property line, on Mr. Jadali's side of it, is a series of probably, I think it's 8 to 10 trees. They're very mature trees, are well over 20 years old. They may be 30 or 40 years old. And then there's a couple of them are walnut trees. The majority of them are large maple trees. They're within at least 10 feet. I think I submitted a photograph that if the alderman can take a look at that and also see there's 2 photographs, one that shows the trees and another one that shows where the telephone pole is. So you get at least some kind of reference as to where the property line is in relation to the trees. And it'd be very tough to put that driveway in its location and not compact the soil and impact the trees and their life expectancy severely. I think Mr. Jolly had a landscape architect submit a letter, and my experience with trying to save trees on properties, it's very difficult once you start compacting the roots or disturbing the roots, which this would do because the roots run out well beyond the trunk of the tree. They generally run to what we consider the drip line, which would be the outer boundaries of the leaf system, that those roots would be damaged. And if half the tree dies, it may take a period of 5 to 10 years for the tree to finally be at a point where it needs to be removed. So it would take a considerable amount of time to replace those trees and the age of them to help, particularly with the screening of Mr. Jadali's residence from something like this. Then the third thing that I wanted to point out was the request to reduce the setback from 40 feet to 25 feet. It just strikes me going past the property, and you can see it from the contour map that was supplied by Mr. Rausch for this development, that from the sidewalk to what would be the rear of these houses is going to be 25 feet. It's going to rise at least for the house that might be closest to the north, might be 8 feet to the walkout floor level, but to the second residence to the south, that rise might be 10 to 12 feet. And then you have a 2-story house with 2 major gables on it. So that the elevation, the height of that would be the house approximately to the top of the gable might be at 25 to 30 feet. And then you've got the rise to the ground that's around 10 feet. And then maybe yes, maybe no. It may be an aesthetic thing. I think it'd be very difficult to plant trees and do any kind of landscaping behind those houses too. So that, let's say, the neighborhood would be satisfied if there were a potential to put landscaping up to hide and bring the scale down of the rear elevations of these houses. But I think it'd be very difficult. Planting trees on a 30% slope is nearly impossible. Any other landscape that you might put in there would maybe screen the lower part of the houses, but not really of much significance in my estimation anyway. So those were the 3 things, and beyond just the the nature of the zoning changes and relationship of, well, duplexes versus a single family. You know, it's economics and when I see a piece of property that's been for sale for a long time, it usually boils down to price and willingness to bring the price to a point where somebody becomes very interested because they can see how a single family home might work on that property financially. And I have a hesitation in saying that I would agree that because of the economics of buying a property, that it's appropriate to put 4 individual dwellings on it and to justify the economics of buying, of the property. So those were my concerns and that I've shared with Mr. Jadali and his attorney, and there are 11 others there, 11 other comments that we made that could be reviewed by the alderman. So thank you. And I'd be glad to answer any questions if there were.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak against? Is there anyone in person or online who would like to speak against this planned unit development? Welcome.
I'm Deborah Kramer. I live at 537 Fairway Creek Drive in Emerald Valley. Until Chris LaShorn spoke, it never occurred to me that our view of these homes would be the back of the houses as we drove along Marcoux Road. I, for one, am not interested in looking at the back of anybody's house. We have beautiful homes in Emerald Valley, and I just am shocked that we would have to look at the back of the homes. This corner is such a blind corner that when I go into the country club, even if I'm planning to go over to the eastern side of the parking lot or the eastern parking lot, I use the western driveway because I'm afraid of that blind corner. I also stood in this chamber years ago to oppose the sidewalk to nowhere, and it went in anyway, but one of my oppositions was snow and ice removal. That's come up tonight. I knew it would be a problem. I would challenge Mr. Roush to build one lovely residential home that would be, everybody else in the valley would be proud and happy to look at and happy for your success. But 4 homes, that just won't cut it. I counted 14 people in the chamber tonight who are in opposition to it. There are many more people in Emerald Valley who are opposed to it, and that just doesn't make good neighbors.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition? Anyone who would like to speak in opposition? This is the last call for those in person and online. If anyone would like to speak in opposition. I'm not seeing or hearing any, so I will declare the public hearing closed and turn this matter over to the Plan Commission.
Mayor,
Alder Smith.
I'd like to make a motion that we defer this decision tonight. I've heard a lot here, and I've heard the phone ring all day. And so I do appreciate everybody's input, both the positive and the negative. There seems to be a lot of questions, location, is that the best place for 4 places on a 1 lot thing? That just concerns me. Driving by it today, I have some concerns. The elevation, the density of 4 buildings in one plan for 1 lot concerns me too. And if I was a neighbor, I think I'd be concerned. Also, the driveway has come up a lot. I don't know the answer, and I'm hoping that Mr. Roush can, continue to find a solution. We've had other situations where they'll be able to work with the neighbors, get together, come up with a solution that could be a win-win for everybody. We definitely don't want to make decisions that are against what the citizens of Alaska want. So for those kinds of things, I just think my motion is that we delay it, give it some more time, as many people said. Let's sort this out. Let's see if we can come up with a workable solution. From Mr. Rausch's perspective, understand and respect that. We've worked with him in other developments and have come up with an opportunity to make it a solution for both sides. So that's my motion, is that we defer it and until the next planning commission, yeah. And then hopefully before that, there will be some just dialogue and discussion to come back with a little bit more answers and discussion and maybe options, with Mr. I'd like to see what Mr. Rush says after my motion. But that's my motion, is that we postpone it to the next planning commission.
Is there a second? Skip?
I need to have the motion stated very simply to make a second to that. I can't second a motion that was that long.
Okay. Would you like to restate, Tom?
I make a motion that we defer making a decision to move this on today. Is that simple enough?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion to defer by Alder Tom Smith, seconded by Skip Temke. Under discussion. Let's go to Administrator Eric Reinfleisch first.
Thank you. In part of the motion, Alder Smith is mentioning some things in terms of density, in terms of building height, and what have you. Just want to point out, sort of within the memos presented to the council, the development as zoned will meet all of our density and perimeter lot area and heights requirements already. And barring the 4 exemptions that the developer is asking for, and only the 4 exemptions, which is really what is before the committee this evening, correct? The 4 exemptions which we talk about, the driveway is the one that we've heard most conversation about. The setbacks, the transparency, and the trees are the 4 that we're exemption for. Outside of that development could occur. And so as we look at deferring for 30 days, keep in mind that's the question at hand for the developments, and that's the question in front of the Planning Commission this evening, are those 4 exceptions and only those 4 exceptions.
Thank you. Commissioners, we'll start with Skip.
Yes, number of things. Question is asked, why hasn't this been developed? Well, many years ago, maybe 15 to 20 years ago, I think it was even before Jarrett was on the Plan Commission, Mr. Dickinson came aboard to want to develop part of that land. At that time, we had a turnout like we have tonight, and I heard many of the same things 15, 20 years ago that I heard tonight. I think that scared developers away, and that's why there's been no development of this for 15 to 20 years. Now, another person says, well, why do we have to change things? The rules are this way and that's the way it should stay. Well, if that's true, when I graduated from high school, Onalaska stopped at 9th Street except for development, say, out Main Street to the cemetery. All this land where these people live was agriculture. No change. They wouldn't be there today. That has to be agriculture because that's what the rules are. So change is something that we have to progress. And the question here tonight is this good change or not good change? And from all I hear, I came here with the idea of on the fence. And after I hear all these ideas, I say, hey, this is the greatest thing that's come along for this, because these people's arguments have actually turned me the other way. Now, this is an esoteric question, so I don't expect an answer. But how can the owner of this property properly use it to his benefit? Everybody's against it. So I think the real solution here is that the homeowners association needs to buy that land. And then all these people's objections will be satisfied. The homeowners association could get the money from their homeowners, buy that land, and then everything will be settled. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Craig?
You know, over the years, I've heard a number of neighborhood associations fly in the face of the rights of people who bought property adjacent to theirs to do something that is permitted. It bothers me a little bit. I should have the luxury of being able to go on everybody's property and tell them which windows they need to change and to what models and what brands. We don't like to do that. And I will say additionally that experience with architects over 30 years has taught me that many of them claim or are assumed to have expertise in areas that they do not have. I think that that property is developable. I don't know if this is the right development. I believe it might be. I think I'm in favor of this. When we talk about traffic, egress onto the roadway, my question is, as one lady stated, that one of the driveways into the country club is dangerous. Is the country club doing anything to change that? With 300 and 400 car events out at the country club, what do you do to mitigate danger caused by that? You know, I think some of the arguments fly in your own face. I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you, sir. Katie, I did have one question when I was reviewing this. With the way the driveways and the houses are configured on the site, is there the ability to get adequate fire protection services there? I don't know if Chief Goody is on the line, or maybe Jared Holter, our engineer, would like to answer that.
So when you look at the development driveway that they're proposing tonight is approximately 200 feet off of the street. With that, we have to look at that as part of the site plan development. The driveway that is shown is just over 10% grade. The fire department in years past was asking for nothing over 15%, and 10% is what they would like to have for their maximum. With that, you can get if you get the fire truck to the top of the hill, basically you are now close enough to the buildings to fight the fire. You'd have to back the fire truck down the hill to get out. But, you know, the two buildings there in the back, you'd probably be 50 feet from the farthest building. So Troy could chime in, but I think it would, you're definitely not going to get a fire truck up there and turn around. That you're not going to do. I would freely admit that today. But with that, I think a fire in those front two structures, you'd fight it from the road just like you would any other fire.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Comments?
Can you hear me okay, guys?
It's Troy.
Yes, Troy, go
Hello?
ahead. Sorry,
Yep.
Chief.
Yeah, this is Troy Goody, the fire chief. Yeah, I did. I agree with what Jared was saying. The concern is we would like to see a 10% grade. I know at some areas they do allow up to 15%, but I think the standard that we've pretty much adopted is 10%. So I think looking at that plot, it was about 10.5%. That was a question whether we could get a fire truck up there and turn it. I'm not sure if the developer looked at that yet or not.
Thank you, Chief. Any other comments from the commissioners?
Jan, or anybody want to talk?
Mayor Smith?
Yes, Jan, you have the floor. Jan
Thank
Brock.
you. This is Jan Brock. I actually have a couple of questions for the developer, Mr. Roush. I'd like to know, because that hill is so steep on Marcoux Road, what are his landscape plans for that if this development were to proceed? You need to obviously stabilize the hill and have some sort of aesthetic landscaping out there.
Mr. Roush, could you answer that question?
Thank you, Jan. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Yeah, so our plans will be context sensitive for landscape. So In the steep parts of the landscape, we'll obviously need to install a thicker vegetation that's capable of retaining the soil and precluding erosion in the steeper parts. And then, of course, we'll have a mixture of ornamental trees, shrubs with dense growing roots, probably use some prairie plantings that also have a really deep root system to preclude erosion. And then we, instead of waiting for seeding, we would be sodding, pinning so that it would establish quickly. And then for prairie plantings, we would probably use plugs that are partially established when they go in, so they take root very quickly to preclude erosion after the sites are settled. And of course, this all happens after we make use of all of our erosion protection measures during construction. So temporary stormwater ponds, places for overflow to go, handling that in city sewer to the best of our ability without overflowing. So we would have all those temporary measures in place during construction before landscaping would happen after construction. Does that answer your question?
Would you need any retaining walls?
Our plan right now shows a possible retaining wall above the properties along the heavier slope to the south. At this point, the rest of our plan does not show retaining walls throughout the rest of the development next to the homes, just one wall above the slopes to accommodate clearance for the driveway.
Okay, thank you. And my second question is, the driveway coming down, it's kind of a twofold one. Will it line up with the driveway coming out of the country club over by the tennis courts? And what are your plans to mitigate problems with the neighbors' trees?
Sure. So as far as location of the driveway, and forgive me, I don't know right now where that lines up with regard to the western approach. I think they're offset from one another. They don't line up. So in terms of handling the traffic that comes in and out of there, I think it's important to give some context to that. And then I'll answer the part about the trees. Having been through multiple traffic studies and turning movements as they relate to a project, when you look at this development, the primary movement of traffic will be people when they're northbound or northwest bound on Marku Road, they'll be turning left into this development, right? Because there are people coming home from wherever they've been, they're coming home to that location. Right? And then the other primary turning movement is people leave the development, they'll mostly turn right to head out of the development, past the country club and over to commercial areas and other road access. So those are the two primary turning movements. So when you look at those primary turning movements, you have great visibility to the northwest. So if you're turning right, you're stopped, you look to the northwest, which would be the only direction of oncoming traffic that could hit you, and you would turn right with traffic. If you're turning left into the development, you see oncoming traffic before you turn left across it, just as the neighbor's driveway does right next door. So they're very close in proximity. So that's the safety aspect. And I would reiterate, if we look at things from a safety perspective and traffic count, the danger happens when 300 or 400 cars leave the parking lot next door, not when there's a total of approximately 16 trips a day from 4 single-family homes in a development. By scale, that traffic count is a minuscule increase in traffic and minuscule increase in danger at that point. With regard to the neighbor's trees, there's a couple things. One, we probably have the ability to make some adjustments to the driveway to add a little extra buffer and probably stay at least 10 feet away by putting a little hip in the driveway to move it slightly as it meets the road. Our driveway is at its closest point 5 feet from the property line and then diverges from the property line up to 24 feet at its southwesternmost tip. So if we think about if the neighbor's trees are approximately, let's say 10 feet onto their property, we're anywhere from 15 to 34 feet away from the base of those trees. I can't make any guarantees as to a tree's fitness long-term because unfortunately trees die and I don't like when that happens. I love all the trees on our property and we do our best we can to take care of them. That said, if we make a little change in the angle of the driveway, we should be able to make slightly more room. However, if I come back to Mrs. Aspenson's comments earlier about driveway setbacks and proximity, Normally in an R1 setting, so let's say this property was zoned R1, the requirement for driveway setback to side yard, I believe, is 3 feet. Is that correct, Katie? So this were R1 without any variance, without any permission, without any additional changes, we could put a driveway 3 feet away from the neighbor's property line if it's just a single family home, right? Just one house going there without any variance, any request, any additional things. We don't want to do that because we want to be good neighbors. And so as a result, we've tried to push that driveway as far away from there as we can and still accommodate the development and therefore the health of the trees next door. So I know it's a big answer to the question, Jan. Does that answer your question, or do you have more there that I could speak to?
No, it does. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roush, for that description. Eric Reinfleisch?
I guess just to answer the question about the driveway, according to La Crosse County map viewer, where the driveway is located at that corner of the property would be almost immediately across from the driveway exit by the tennis courts for the Gulf Country Club. So it would be a face-to-face intersection.
Thanks, Eric.
Jan, do you have any more questions or comments right now?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. How about you, Amber?
Yes, so this is Amber. I don't think we're gonna get away from developing that plot of land or really any developable plot of land here in Alaska. This is the place that people want to live in La Crosse County. It's a great city. And the average person prefers a single family dwelling compared to a condo or an apartment. You know, I'm sure they'd rather spend the extra money to live in a single family home. So the more of those kinds of places we can provide for people to live in, you know, the more appealing that this place will be ultimately. That said, I would still like to defer and look at that plot myself. I have yet to drive past it. So will it be developed at some point? Absolutely. Is this the right development for that specific plot of land? I'm not sure yet.
Thank you for your comments, Amber. Jared, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, thank you. So quite a few of the questions tonight. Some of these questions will get answered during our site plan process. That's where we get into the nuts and bolts of nailing down exactly what the plans are. With this, the driveway slope, as we talked about with Chief Goody, we did look at that as part of the initial site plan submittal here that you see in your packet tonight. I think the driveway could be shifted over to get a 10-foot minimum spacing from the property line. With that, also the traffic has come up, and typically for a single family home, we use 9 trips a day in and out. So if you did that, that'd be 36 trips. I think probably knowing the traffic patterns in the country club and the areas out there, you're probably going to be a little less than that. Those probably aren't going to be 9 trip per day households, but you're going to have 30 trips a day probably coming in and out of that development. I don't have the exact traffic count for that section of road, but there's probably between 1,000 and it is going more as it develops. So there's probably between 500 and 1,000 trips a day already on that street. So I believe, looking at that, if you're going to develop that site, that is the best location for the driveway opening, for the being across from the country club driveway, and it's the furthest point from the curve. That curve is not the greatest traffic feature in the neighborhood because there are a lot of vehicles that take it over the 15 precautionary that's posted on that curve. When you look at that area, I've been with the city 25 years, done many projects out in this area. I was out there when we put the sidewalk in. I was out there when we redid the road, the north half and the south half in this area. And with that, the area does see a large amount of traffic with the country club in the actual clubhouse in that area. Part of it with the traffic is, I guess I don't have an exact number, 75%, 80% of traffic probably uses that west driveway. So unless there's an event, they're typically aren't using the I call it the north driveway, the one that's closer to Country Club Lane. So I do agree with the precaution that the citizens brought up tonight regarding the 10% driveway. It will be a maintenance item for whoever lives there to make sure that they don't slide down the driveway. But I do know that the 3 township houses there above it, when we put the sidewalk in, part of the reason we took part of the street up and put the sidewalk on the further end of the city right away is because we couldn't, those driveways are so steep, we couldn't get the sidewalk in there without doing that. So, and I haven't heard of anyone sliding down one of those driveways into the street. Doesn't mean that couldn't have happened, but I have not heard of that. But once again, we shoot for 10% when we do engineering projects in the city. We have allowed up to 15 in the city. You start getting over 15, it gets very steep. Stormwater was brought up. Looking at this site, I do agree that it will be a challenge. They will have to submit and get a Wisconsin DNR NR 216 permit because it's over an acre of disturbance. As part of that and our city ordinances, they will have to meet the stormwater rules that we have on the books for what runoff can occur. The developer in their initial proposal did show some storm sewer going to those biofilters. I do not have exact information. That's part of the site plan process when we do receive it to review it and ensure that it will work for the site. With that, one thing I did take away from the public comment tonight is the elevation of the road out there is probably at about 755, and they're showing a first walkout elevation. You know, they're a little different between the two homes that face Marco Road, but the walkout is at 769. So say that those walkouts are going to be 15 foot above the elevation of the current street, and then you got another 10 foot for the first floor, and then you've got the roof line and or a second floor if they choose to have one, or third floor if you want to call it that. So there will be a lot of building exposed to the back. But I did look at in our packs tonight with the submittal showing the stonework and the notes on the architectural rendering that were submitted, and they look like they're going to be very nice, but they're not actual renderings. That might be a nice thing to have as a rendering that shows it from the street. I guess with that, I think we will have to review some of the water service to the site and sewer service and things like that, and getting that into the site. But those are typical site plan items that we go over.
Thank you for that, Jared. Katie, did you have anything you wanted to add?
There were some questions related to the planned unit development process, and requests for variances is the phrase that's been used a lot tonight. I just wanted to let it know that any property in the city of Onalaska that's greater than 1 acre has the ability to come forward to the Plan Commission and the Common Council to request deviation from the code. We have this occur often. There's another one on the docket for this evening. We recently changed our code so that you are allowed to ask for up to 5 deviations from the code. Previous to this year, we had no limit. You could ask whatever you liked. And it became a task for the Plan Commission and the Common Council to go item by item and decide what they felt was for the best of the development and what the city was willing to consider. So while it may seem as though Mr. Roush is asking for lots of variances, he has the ability to do so. Any property owner has the ability to do so, and there are planned unit developments within the country club itself, some on single family dwellings. So I just wanted to educate those that had questions related to that process. It is a 2-step process. You have the ability to come forward with a general development plan, which is generally more conceptual in nature, and then you come back with a final implementation plan that has more detail. As Jared alluded to, if a planned unit development is formally approved, city staff take over and we do more fine tuning in terms of reviewing site plan and making sure that all aspects of the code are passed. So there are plenty of developments throughout our community, and we've had them for decades. So this is not a new process to the city, though it may be new specifically to you if you've not heard of them before. Otherwise, I apologize for the USPS mail for those that did not get the mailing until last week. We allow 4 days, and this is our standard practice, to send out the mail for it to go up to Minneapolis and come back down here. That's typically what it takes for a letter to be received. So we did send those out on the 10th. Again, I apologize if people did not receive it earlier last week or at the end of the previous, as was anticipated by staff. There are any other questions by the Planning Commission? I'm happy to answer those as well.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments from the Plan Commission at this time?
Mayor,
The motion on the floor.
I'd like to make some more comments
Let me
first.
say one more.
Okay.
So the motion on the floor is to defer action on the plan unit development that has been filed for the property at Marcoux Road. Tom?
Yeah, and the reason why I'm still deferring, because it hasn't changed my mind, is I still think that there is an opportunity to see if we can get closer together in some of these things. We've worked with Mr. Roosh before on some other developments, and there was like, we were here and we were able to come together and a little bit closer. And I don't know if Mr. Roosh can speak about today, but I still have concern with 4 units on a single plot. Is there any way, any wiggle room on that where it could be different? And you don't have to answer that today, but that's the kind of stuff. And the driveway thing, I think we've talked about it. There might be some options there. I still have concern with the slope and the water runoff and all that stuff, just seeing the location. So to me, I'd be more comfortable if I had a little bit more definite plan or something that people could see in writing that this is what we do. I know Jared said, we go to the next step and then we flesh out some of the stuff. But I think there's just a lot of unknowns or a lot of questionable stuff that people are asking. So that's why I think we need some more time to work with the developer, get the feedback, and make the right decision. I'm not against it. I really would love to have that filled in, whether a single family or maybe 2 family, 4, I don't know. But it would be nice to do that if we can. I just want to make sure we make the right decision. So that's my thought.
Yes, and thank you again, everyone who came in person and tuned in. We really do like it when people come and give their input. I know it makes for a longer night sometimes, but other times we sit here, we make decisions and nobody's in the room and nobody's listening and we wonder why are we even bothering? So thank you for coming. We really did appreciate it. Katie?
I would just like to address one other aspect. So as this property is zoned R3, they do have the ability to put up to 8 units on a single parcel. And that is outright permitted by the city. They can also do a single family dwelling, a twindo or 2 families, all the way up to 8. So to note, if Mr. Roush comes back with a development that requires no deviation from the code, he is allowed to put that development in without any say by the Plan Commission or Common Council. He just would have to follow every aspect of the code. So the asks would fall away and he would be able to put it in if he was able to do it. So for example, if he changed the design from 4 individual single-family homes and put in a row of 8 townhomes and made it work, he could do that if he met every rule, and he would not need anyone's permission to do so. So there is, to some degree, when you come forward with the 4 units, what's a better fit for the community? Is it better to have 4 single-family dwellings, or do you want to push it that you can't control how many units he puts in as long as it follows the code? You just have to weigh the pros and cons, because if he follows the code, he can do whatever he likes. So by him coming forward and asking for deviation, he's actually allowing you more control into his development that he would not necessarily have the opportunity to otherwise. So just something to consider as we move forward.
Thank you, Katie. And I think that part of the reason why I like the idea of deferring is because this has been a educational process as to the specific plans and the process for the neighbors. And having worked with the Nick Roche before, we know that he will be hearing you and responding in ways that, will hopefully make this an even better prospect. So is there any other comments or questions, discussion from the board? Motion on the floor is to defer. Are we ready to vote? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no.
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 Oh, boy. I guess I'm going to ask for a roll call
Let's
vote.
do a roll call.
Just do a roll call vote because we have the online people and the in here, and then if it's not unanimous, it's very.
Okay, so we'll do a roll call vote for item number 6, the public hearing. Mayor Kim Smith,
Aye.
Alder Tom Smith,
Aye.
Jared Holter,
Aye.
Jan Brock,
I abstain.
Amber Path,
Aye.
Newt Timty,
Hey.
and Craig Brightbecker.
Thank you. Motion passes 4-2 with 1 abstention. Thank you all who came in today. Item 7 is a public hearing at approximately 7:30 or immediately following the previous to consider a general development plan to create a planned unit development application filed by Excel Engineering, 100 Camelot Drive, Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, 54935 on behalf of St. Paul's Lutheran Church, 1201 Main Street, Onalaska, Wisconsin, 54650, to develop, expand the existing building based on the institutional master plan for the religious institution, elementary and middle school located at 1201 Main Street, Onalaska, Wisconsin, 54650. This is tax parcel ID number 18733-0. Katie, was there something you'd like to say in advance of the public hearing?
Sorry.
I was going to say, it didn't sound like you're.
Yes, I'll give a brief background for those in attendance. This planned unit development is allowed to request for deviations and exceptions to code standards for a proposed addition to St. Paul's Lutheran Church at 1201 Main Street, Onalaska. In particular, the existing structure and proposed expansion do not meet our side yard setbacks and may necessitate an exceeding an allowable height for a retaining wall of 6 feet. Also will require the removal of vegetation, putting the site under ordinance vegetation requirements, and also temporary signage allotments. Due to the size of the property and placement of the structure, they state that a PUD will be most favorable for the property. Included in your packet is the plans by the applicant in addition to a cover letter describing the request. In particular, with the yard setbacks, the UDC requires a minimum of a 40-foot setback for places of worship to be waived. The existing structure is currently non-conforming as 3 of the 4 sides of the structure have less than 40 feet. The proposed addition is suggested to be approximately 16.9 feet from the eastern property line, which is similar to the existing structure today. If the PUD is approved, the setbacks for the existing and proposed construction would bring this property into conformance. Additionally, they're asking that retaining walls be a maximum of 6 feet in height and terraced a minimum of 3 feet apart be waived. This project is designed to expand an existing retaining wall that is serving this property. Portions of this wall appear to exceed 6 feet in height. If the PUD is approved, this would bring the retaining walls for the entire site back into conformance. City staff are in support of these due to the reasons stipulated above, and that the proposed addition will not encroach any closer to the abutting properties than it is today. The applicant is also trying to construct a retaining wall in accordance with the UDC, and they would only exceed 6 feet if absolutely necessary, and city staff would be made aware of that as part of the site plan review process. In terms of landscaping, the UDC requires 1 canopy tree or evergreen tree per 25 linear feet of frontage. This particular site has street frontage on 3 sides of it. totaling 1,262.29 linear feet, which requires 51 trees to be installed on this property. There's currently 37 on site, and an additional 14 are proposed to be gained with the first stage of construction, primarily in the city's boulevard area, bringing the total to 51. However, the second stage of construction will remove 11 trees that will bring them back under the number required. City staff are in support of this, as the applicant is making every effort to replace trees and install trees in the boulevard where they're not today. And there is very little remaining green space after the completion of all phases, which would make additional tree plantings difficult. Lastly, signage. Non-residential parcels are allowed specific temporary signage allotments based on frontage. Currently, St. Paul uses a banner that they have attached to two wooden posts that you see on the south side of Main Street. The requested deviation is to continue this practice year-round. It's highlighting different events and messages pertaining to their religious institution. Applicant would have to obtain any and all relevant permits as needed, but this would exceed the amount of temporary signage that is currently allowed today. As a public hearing will be held, testimony should be considered before deciding on the requested planning and development application. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. I'll now open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this, please state your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Welcome.
My name is Dan Olson, N4320 Germain Court in Onalaska, Wisconsin. I'm one of the pastors at St. Paul's Lutheran, so thanks for having me here. I just want to say that this building project is meant to improve a quality Christ-centered education for the 200 plus students that we have at St. Paul's, as well as give to us a more quality place to worship for our community and to improve the different the areas of our facility that have so many community events in it. The specific place where we are doing the building project and the remodeling is the oldest part of our building, built back in 1974. So it's going to greatly beautify the Onalaska community and our facility. So thank you.
Thank you, sir, for coming in. Would anyone else like to speak in favor of this planned unit development for St. Paul's Church? Would anyone like to speak in favor? Last call for anyone wishing to speak in favor? Yes, sir?
Yes, I would.
Oh, okay. I was getting a signal. Go ahead, sir, online. State your name and address first.
My name is Joe Fitsenko. My work address is 1201 Main Street in Onalaska. I have the privilege of serving as a teacher at St. Paul's, including serving as our athletic director and as a coach here. Well, I'd be happy to talk your ears off. I'll exercise extreme brevity to be a good steward of our time here. Through enhancements to our campus, including significant upgrades to athletic, music, and STEM capabilities, I speak for our faculty in saying that we are excited to be better equipped to serve our students and community through this project. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor? Peter's not racing out. I thought for a minute he was going to speak. Maybe it was
Peter.
the congregation. I didn't know.
It's good, huh?
Okay, so the online person, go ahead and speak in favor of this.
Yeah, Jason Day with Excel Engineering, civil engineer for the project. Katie did a good job, explaining what we're trying to do here with the infrastructure improvements, as well as the exceptions that we're looking to get approval on to move ahead. Just want to let you know I'm here to answer any technical questions you have in regards to the site plan itself, as well as David Vandenhoven, with Excel also is joined virtually here if there's any technical questions as far as the architecture goes. So that was it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor? Last call, if anyone would like to speak in favor of the project at St. Paul's. Okay, that portion of the public hearing is closed, and I'll now open it up for those who would like to speak in opposition to the planned unit development for St. Paul's Lutheran Church. Would anyone like to speak in opposition? Peter, now is the time. If someone is online waving their hand, anyone would like to speak against this
They give
planned
a
unit
flag.
development? Okay, the public hearing is now closed, and I will turn this matter over to the commissioners. Commissioners, what is your pleasure?
Okay, all right. I'll,
Who's in charge of the
I guess,
motions tonight?
I'll make a motion that we approve the general development plan to create a plan unit development application filed by Excel Engineering, 100 Camelot Drive, Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, on behalf of St. Paul's Lutheran Church, 1201 Main Street, Onalaska, 54650, to develop and expand the existing building based on the institutional master plan for religious institution / elementary and middle school location located at 1201 Main Street, Onalaska, Wisconsin, 54650, tax parcel 18-733-0. And I believe there are six items attached to the appendix, item number 7 to be included.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that question.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Tom Smith, seconded by Skip Tempty to approve the planned unit development for St. Paul's Church with 6 conditions. Is there discussion? Yeah.
I have a procedural question. Why do they have to go through the thing of having a planned unit development in addition to the site plan permit to do a development expansion to an existing building?
I don't know. Let's ask Katie that question.
Why are they doing a planned unit development and then a site plan review? Is that your question? I couldn't hear you entirely, Skip.
Well, I'm saying they had to have a site approval and everything to an existing building to start with. Why do they need the planned unit development in addition to it?
Sure. So the planned unit development is to allow for the asks, the building setbacks, because they do not meet the 40-foot, and the addition will not meet the 40-foot setback. The landscaping request, the retaining walls that would exceed anywhere greater than 6 feet in height, and then the temporary signage. So whenever you want to not follow the code, your only recourse if you're greater than an acre is to obtain a planned unit development. As further mentioned, city staff go through with a fine-tooth comb, so to say, and we review all of the details related to site plan. So they're actually going through this process with us at the same time of this meeting in terms of trying to speed up the process of review. So, but we wouldn't issue approval unless the Plan Commission and Common Council approve the project.
You know, I wonder if we could handle this better just through the site plan if the zoning had been written differently. That's all. Thank you.
Katie, did this change though when we updated the way we process things?
Nope, they had never, before our planned unit development, you needed 5 acres of development. And as part of the new UDC, we reduced that down to 1 acre. So this is actually good for St. Paul's Lutheran Church because it will bring their property into conformance with our code. Today, they are considered legal non-conforming because they do not meet our code. So this would essentially remove that non-conforming status, which would be good overall for the property.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions from the commissioners or staff?
Mayor.
Yes,
I would
sir.
just like to say, I like the rendering. The pictures look really nice. And
Beautiful.
it's definitely going to be a beautiful building and a great spot there. Good visibility. So congratulations. It looks like really a good project.
Thank you for that, Tom. Eric Reinflesh?
One concern I would have going forward, and nothing to do with the PUD here, but as we do site plan review, I just want to make sure that we have sufficient parking still, that we don't cause difficulty with the surrounding area for parking, as well as they're currently using some of the parking lot for outdoor recreation for the students, which will be taken up by some of the building here. So making sure that as we review that, we're not creating perhaps neighborhood parking problems where cars are currently parked on the street.
Thank you for that. Jared?
I will say that the site is constrained. There's a lot going on. We've worked with the owner's engineer to get some stormwater management practices put in and looked at what we could do with the wall and just everything with the site, and they've been good to work with. I think it will benefit the community, benefit the use of the site to issue the planned unit development. And I think overall, it will work within the neighborhood. I do agree with the administrator on ensuring we have enough parking for events, but just looking at it from staff, going through it with the owner and their representatives, we've done the best with what is there. There's a lot going on, but I think it's best to let them improve their site and get it to the next level.
Thank you for that. Any other comments? Katie Aspenson.
Thank you.
City Planner.
Thank you. So in reference specific to parking, they do meet all of our parking standards, provided that the uses are staggered. So when the religious setting is occurring versus school versus gymnasium, our code allows you that if they're not occurring at the same time, you do not need to use those stalls. So they actually meet the code as it's written today, which is why it's not one of their asks this evening.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments from the commissioners? The motion on the floor is to approve the request, the PUD for St. Paul's with 6 conditions. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 8, consideration of a final implementation plan to create a planned unit development application filed by Nicholas Roush of DNC Holdings LLC, 707 Lacrosse Street, Office 102, Lacrosse, Wisconsin, 54601, to allow a new residential development to contain 4 single-family dwellings on a single parcel located at Marcoux Road, Onalaska, Wisconsin, 54650. This is tax parcel ID number 18-3619-1. Katie?
Thank you. So the developer had opted to run the general development plan and the final implementation plan simultaneously, which our code does allow for that. So I would recommend, if you had deferred the first agenda item to the next plan commission meeting, that the same occur for this item. Then that way they could continue to proceed accordingly in tandem.
Thank you, Katie. Alternatively, we could do nothing.
Well, we wanted to defer it.
No.
Amanda?
Make a motion to defer.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Craig Breitsprecher,
I'll second.
seconded by Tom Smith. Under discussion, Amanda, did you want to? Might be better to just defer it. Okay, so the motion on the floor is to defer. Is there any discussion? Or any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say no.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. The motion was to defer and it passed. Item 9, consideration of a final implementation plan to create a planned unit development application filed by Excel Engineering, 100 Camelot Drive, Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, 54935, on behalf of St. Paul's Lutheran Church, 1201 Main Street, Onalaska, Wisconsin, 54650, to develop, expand the existing building based on the institutional master plan for the religious institution elementary and middle school located at 1201 Main Street, Onalaska, Wisconsin, 54650. This is tax parcel number 18-733-0. Katie.
Thank you. So the staff report is very similar to the previous one that I just went through. There is one additional condition to this, that it's contingent upon approval of the general development plan. This applicant has also requested to run the GDP and the FIP simultaneously. So if recommended for approval, I would ask there be 7 conditions of approval for this development.
Thank you. What is the position of the Plan Commission?
Motion to approve the final implementation plan for St. Paul's Lutheran Church, 1201 Main Street with the 7 conditions.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Jared Holter, seconded by Craig Breitsprecher to approve the final implementation plan for St. Paul's with the 7 conditions. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Motion to approve passes unanimously. Item 7, review and consideration of a certified survey map to reconfigure 5 existing parcels into 4 parcels and dedicate Century Place right-of-way filed by DNC Holdings LLC, 707 Lacrosse Street, Office 102, Lacrosse, Wisconsin, 54601 for the parcels located at 415, 430, 435, 455, and 475 Century Place, Onalaska, Wisconsin, 54650. These are tax parcel ID numbers 18-6299-0, 18-6300-0, 18-6301-0, 18-6302-0, and 18-6303-0. Katie?
Thank you. The request this evening is based off the right-of-way vacation of Century Place. A portion of that was completed. Moving forward, DNC Holdings is looking to reconfigure the 5 parcels and the Century Place right-of-way into 4 parcels and then rededicate Century Place right-of-way back to the city. As shown on the CSM, Lot 1 will contain 0.94 acres, Lot 2, 2.24 acres, Lot 3, 2.76 acres, and Lot 4, 6.07 acres. The new Lot 4 is the end result of moving the previous Lots 4 and 5 together. The new Century Place right-of-way will contain approximately 1.12 acres. There are a variety of cross-lot easements required and are shown on the CSM, including highway building setbacks, access, utility, and drainage easements. The proposed parcels meet all requirements of parcels in the R4 zoning district. City staff have put together 8 conditions of approval for this development.
Thank you. What is the pleasure of the commission?
I'll make a motion that we approve the consideration and approve the certification survey map to reconfigure 5 existing parcels into 4 parcels to dedicate Century Place right-of-way filed by DNC Holdings LLC, 707 Lacrosse Street, Lacrosse, Wisconsin, for the parcels all noted in agenda item number 10 with the 8 conditions.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor by Tom, seconded by Craig, to approve the certified survey map with 8 conditions. Is there discussion? Eric?
Very quick, but I know this can be a sensitive issue. When looking at the certified survey map included in the packet, the easement listed between lots 2 and 3 almost looks like a connection of Thomas Court. I just want to assure anybody looking at that, that is not a connection of Thomas Court. That is simply a utility easement running from existing Thomas Court to the parcels.
That was a subject of a lot of other meetings that we had.
Bring that up, clarify that.
Because it kind of looks like it, so just.
Okay.
Okay, any other
Thank you.
discussion?
Heading off controversy.
All right, so the motion on the floor is to approve the certified survey map for the Century Place parcels with 8 conditions. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 11 is adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Tom, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jared. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. The time is 9:30. What? 9:27.
Mayor, are you still on?
Yes, sir, I am.
Yeah, Steve, not. Okay, so my phone died, or didn't die, actually. It hung up. I had to redial in for agenda item number 8. That's the only vote I missed. Everything else was fine. I came in as you were talking about number 9. How did that end? Was that also determined that they defer that, or was that approved with the final implementation plan?
Nope, we decided to defer it and it passed.
Okay. Okay, so they're both deferred, the general and the final. Okay. I figured that's what would happen, but it died just as you were reading the narrative. Okay.
Amanda did clarify that we could pass it, we could defer it, or we could take no action. So we decided to defer it since that's what we did with the companion piece.
All right. Yeah, it made most sense. So, okay. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for tuning in. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties.
Whatever.